Hey everyone, I'm the Magic Illumineer, and welcome back to my little corner of magic and wonder on the internet where I discuss Disney Lorcana. I have been away for a little bit, and I apologize for that to my very few number of followers who have been eagerly awaiting my next video. Work and life caught up to me a little bit, and I just haven't had time to do anything content related, and I apologize for that. But I'm here now, and I specifically wanted to create this video, set some time to record it, because I want to talk about my store championship experience from this past weekend. I had a chance to play in a couple of different tournaments, and I want to talk about what I played, what went well, and just in general, talk about the experience. And I'm going to get right into it. Okay, so for those of you who are not aware of what the Store Championship Series is, it's basically the equivalent of Magic the Gathering's Game Day. Um, it's a competitive event. Um, there you have a number of players vying for some top prizing. In the case of Lorcana, there were some Stitch Rockstar promotional pieces. There's the card, the Stitch Rockstar Enchanted promo, as well as a two different versions of the same art playmat, one with the champion branding on it for first place, the other for without the champion branding on it for second place, and everyone in the top four gets a Stitch promotional card. Um, so I played in two tournaments over this weekend, and I did fairly well. I'm going to talk about my experience, but for the first tournament, I won this sweet playmat. And as you can see, I came in first place because it's a champion playmat, along with the Stitch promo card that goes with it. It was very exciting. I was very happy, obviously, to win the whole thing. And then the following day, I played in a second tournament. This one was actually larger than the first, and well, for that one, I came in second place. So yes, two playmats, two different Stitch cards, just for proof. Um, and yeah, it was a crazy time. I'm gonna talk about how the deck that I played did in each of the different rounds, the different people that I met, lots of cool people that I met along the way, and yeah, it was just a great overall time, and I'll get into that right now. So I really want to start this off by talking about the deck itself a little bit. I decided to put together the deck that I had been playing ever since Into the Inklands came out, and that was an Amethyst Steel deck that focuses on Jafar striking Illusionist and the combination that it has with a whole new world to discard your hand and draw 7 cards. And of course, with Jafar exerted, especially if he sings a whole new world, then his ability being that while he's exerted, whenever you draw a card, you gain 1 lore. So naturally, you're going to be gaining large amounts of lore really quickly. Now, this deck, it shows up from time to time. It's not very prominent in the meta, but I love playing it. I love the combos, and it's a lot of fun, especially with all of the refining that I've been doing over the last several weeks with a friend of mine. We've been practicing over webcam, we've been practicing on Pixelborn, and just really tweaking and refining and fine-tuning the deck to a point where we're actually quite happy with it. And the results really speak for themselves. Um, it's a really cool deck. I'm going to put a link to the deck in the description. It runs some things that you would expect in this kind of deck. It runs a couple of things that you might not expect in this deck. Had to tweak it to make sure that I had answers to some of the stuff in the meta. I'm happy with those inclusions. I also ran a couple of things that you wouldn't necessarily see with this deck, but that end up working out pretty well. And stuff that you can see in the deck list, if you decide to look at it, you might question it, but believe me when I say a lot of effort went into testing this deck, and it works. And like I mentioned, the results speak for themselves. But let's break it down round by round. So for round one, I was forced, unfortunately, to play against a friend of mine. We attended the tournament together and immediately got paired up against one another. And sometimes that just happens. And you know what? More on that later. But for round one, I was up against a Sapphire Steel deck. The deck was revolving around playing Lucky Dime and ramping and trying to get out the combo of Bell and Lucky Dime while using Cogsworth to give your board resist and protect it from being wiped out. Now, this deck feels like a toss-up to me in all the practicing that I did leading up to this deck, or this tournament rather. Um, I felt pretty good going in, but I knew it was going to be a tough set of games. Now, I ended up taking the victory 2-0 against my friend there, and so I started off the day 1-0. I won the first round and I was feeling pretty good. And in round two, I went up against a stranger to me, someone I had met at the store before, but hadn't really interacted with much. This gentleman was playing an Amber Ruby Mufasa deck, although interestingly enough, when I played him, I did not see Mufasa at all. I don't know if he just didn't have it, or we just didn't end up playing it at the time. I can't say for sure. But round two was a bit difficult for me. I ended up again going 2-0 and winning that round, but the whole time I was racing. Um, it was difficult. It was hard to keep pace with a deck that was so aggressive, but lucky draws, timely refills of my hand, and gaining lore off of Jafar, it ended up working out pretty well. And the my opponent, he was not particularly thrilled. Round three is where things got challenging, and I actually ended up losing round three. I went up against a Steel Song deck, and as I'm going to talk about a little later, Steel Song just does not end up. It's not a good matchup for me, for this deck. Rather, it has too much removal and just wipes your board constantly when you're trying to get set up, and it's very difficult to fight through. It's doable, but it's so challenging, and I ended up losing that matchup in 3 games, where I just got steamrolled in game 3. I lost game 1 again. It wasn't even close. Managed to pull out a victory in game 2, and then just I went up against the perfect draw from that deck in game 3 and didn't stand a chance. So I'm now 2-1 on the day at this point. In round 4, I ended up going up against a deck that is a very favorable matchup for the Jafar Whole New World deck. It was an Amethyst Emerald deck, aggressive, and they played a lot of small characters, and that I was able to use the steel package to wipe out rather easily. And then I was able to constantly maintain card advantage over them. They would run out of cards because of the amount of draw in this deck to function with Jafar. It was just really easy to blow past them and not even worry too much about it. So we only did a 4-round Swiss, and that means that at this point we're cutting to top 4. At 3-1, I finished in 3rd place in the standings, so I'd made the top 4 cut, and that already guaranteed me a stitch. I got the promo card no matter what. That being said, I wanted to play Matt, so I played my heart out. Now, with the way that Melee did the cut, it ended up doing 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. That seems to be how it ranks it, and how it does the top cuts, because that's seemingly how it did it the next day. But we'll get to that. With this top 4 scenario, I got very lucky, and I dodged that Steel Song player that I went up against in round 3. I don't think I would have been able to beat that deck just with the way that things went. I ended up against another Emerald Amethyst deck. And again, very similarly, I had a very strong draw against them, was able to wipe their board of small things, and then just won in 2 games. It was not even close, actually. And then that puts me in the finals. And I go up against my opponent from round 2. He was not particularly thrilled to see me there. He was in a rush because he had unfortunately had places to be and things to do. And I think that combination of things made it kind of challenging for him. I feel like he lost focus a little bit. And with my timely draws of A Whole New World, comboing with Jafar to gain large amounts of lore in short periods of time, I was able to take the finals in 3 games and win that playmat. This was a very challenging experience. It was very stressful because I hadn't really done any kind of high-level Lorcana play. This was my first experience and had chance to do it, just because I haven't had really a lot of opportunities up until this point. And it was a blast. I had a lot of fun with it. It was so much fun. And just being able to show off my deck and, really put it to the test after weeks and weeks of practicing with a good friend of mine. We spent so much time trying to refine this deck and trying to make it work. And I think we finally got it in a place where it works. With that said, let's talk about day 2 and the second tournament that I played in. Okay, so day 2 was at a different store. It was a bigger event. We did 5 rounds of Swiss that day. And it was even more challenging than day 1. The one thing I think that really helped me at this tournament was the fact that I had won the day before. There was no pressure on me to perform. I just got to play some games and have some fun, and it took me all the way to the finals. I'll get into that, and I'll talk about a couple of the different matchups that I had. I, truthfully, until the top 8, did not play a ton of Lorcana. And I'm gonna dive into that right now. So with game 1, or round 1 rather, I sat down at the table and my opponent was nowhere to be seen. He never showed up, whoever he was, and I ended up with a round 1 bye because of it. So hey, 2-0 right there, 1 round done, and I've got a good matchup. This is where things get interesting though. In round 2, that friend that I played in round 1 the day before, of course I got matched up against him again. It's funny how that works out. He was playing a different deck today, and unfortunately that was not in his favor. He decided to switch to a deck that he's more comfortable with, and that is an Amethyst Emerald deck. As I mentioned on day 1, I did very well against Amethyst Emerald. It unfortunately is, for him, is just a really good matchup for my deck. I was able to once again outpace him. He did keep it close. Looking at my numbers here in my book, he kept it quite close, but it just wasn't enough to take me out. So I'm already 2-0 at this point going into round 3. And round 3 of this tournament was one of the most surreal experiences of my life. I won arguably one of the quickest, if not I mean, there's no way to really tell here because we don't have the data, but I think I may have won the quickest game of Lorcana ever. Game one, we shuffled up, we drew, we mulliganed, we played 3 turns very quickly, and I got the victory. My opponent, unfortunately, got really unlucky with his draw and mulligan. He ended up with 4 lanterns in his hand and nothing to do with them. It was shocking, to say the least, when I played a turn 1, I believe it was Robin Hood, into a turn 2 Blue Fairy, into a turn 3 Benja to blow up the 1 lantern he was able to play, and then he looked at his hand and said, "I concede, we'll go to game 2." I was very much caught off guard, as was one of the players to my right, who was blown away by the fact that they hadn't even finished mulligans yet, and we were already going to game 2. It was truly a bizarre experience for me, but all things considered, I did end up winning this round in 3 games. My opponent was able to take out some of my key characters in game 2, and he was able to really push past me and gain a huge advantage on the board, and I wasn't able to keep up. But in game 3, I got much luckier with my draw, and I got to be on the play again, and that was enough to get me through. So I am now 3-0 at this point. There were 4 of us that were 3-0 going into round 4. And the other 3 guys, they decided that they wanted to intentionally draw to guarantee our spot in the top 8. I was the only one who was on the fence, it seems, and inevitably they were all way too happy to intentionally draw. We were guaranteed to make it into the top 8. I inevitably gave in, and we ended up going 3-0-2, the 4 of us, and made our way into the top 8. So at this point, I've only ended up actually playing 2 rounds of Lorcana in these 5 rounds. I got a guaranteed win in round 1. I played 2 different opponents in round 2. Oh, also, I forgot to mention, my round 3 opponent was playing an aggro Amber Amethyst deck. It was a very good deck, I think, and he just hit the wrong matchups in this tournament to be very unlucky. But yeah, so I ended up top 8, and my nightmare scenario happened. I ended up drawing the game against the one guy I did not want to play against. My top 8 opponent was a Steel Song player. I was not looking forward to this. My only thought and the only solace I could take in this was, I already got my victory yesterday. It's fine. If I don't win, it's not the end of the world. My friend didn't end up making the cut. He ended up finishing 16th. So he did get some store credit. He was able to make use of that. But I had to keep playing. And I was truthfully, just trying to do the best I could. I didn't want to give up and just, drop out or anything like that, even though I already had my victory from the day before. Of course, if I can win again, why not, right? So, end up in a very unlucky situation playing against Steel Song. Game 1 did not go as well as I could have hoped. My opponent had a really good draw and was able to out-tempo me into a 1-0 lead. Game 2, I don't know what happened on his side, but I can tell you what happened on my side. I got a dream run out of turn 1 Robin Hood, turn 2 Blue Fairy, turn 3 Robin Hood, shift. So I've now got a Champion of Sherwood in play. And after that, I had a turn 5 Robin Hood and a turn 6 Robin Hood. And so I was just completely able to outpace my opponent. He didn't stand a chance in that game. And I was able to tie things up, and we went to game 3. And game 3, I was able to put him on a clock early. I put out a couple of blue fairies. They're evasive. They're hard to deal with. He didn't have the specific removal pieces to deal with them. On top of the fact that I had other big plays, I was able to do another shifted Robin Hood early on, and that worked out really well. And in a way that still blows my mind, I was able to come out with a victory, a 2-1 victory, and I moved into the top 4 to guarantee myself a second stitch. To still at this point, it still blows my mind that I was able to come out with a victory in this matchup. It's such a tough matchup for this deck to deal with. Just the amount of removal that's run in that deck, the Let the Storm Rage On, and Strength of a Raging Fire, Grab Your Sword, Along Came Zeus. That Steel Song package is so gross and so strong that it just is able to take out almost anything that my deck can do if they have those answers early on. And I got lucky. He didn't have them. My top 4 opponent, they were playing Ruby Amethyst. And that is about as close to a 50-50 matchup that this deck can see. I think genuinely, no matter how many times I've played it, I think it always balances out to 50%. At the very least, on this day, that is how things went. I don't remember too much exactly about how things worked out in this one, but I do know that once again I lost game 1, and I was able to take games 2 and 3 in very decisive fashion, especially game 3. My opponent, game 2 was actually more decisive now that I look at it. That's right. So game 2, I had a whole new world into a whole new world with Jafar Exerted, so I gained 14 lore back to back, and that's what put me over the top while my opponent was at 1. Game 3, my opponent finished with 4 lore, so again, they didn't really get started. I had the answers for everything that they were doing. And in the finals, I once again played Ruby Amethyst. It was a different opponent, very similar deck, but slightly different. And again, it went to 3 games, but my opponent was just able to get there. I didn't have the removal for his Queen's Castle in game 3, and he was able to gain lore off of it to get to that victory point. And all things considered, I'm proud of how this deck performed. I'm proud of how I performed. I was exhausted by the end of the day. I was brain dead playing in back-to-back tournaments like that. Even with the limited amount that I ended up playing, there was so much. It was so draining being there all day on Sunday as well as the day before on Saturday. It was a lot of travel for me. Combined across the 2 days, I did about 5 hours of driving, maybe a little bit more. It was a lot, but it was so worth it to get the playmats, to get the stitches for the collection. I think they're going to be so cool. They obviously they're worth a lot right now, but I don't plan on selling them. Like I'm going to be holding on to them. They're just such cool pieces, and I'm so excited that I was able to win them. And I do still have one more store championship coming up this upcoming weekend. Hopefully I'll be able to do well in that, but I'm 2 for 2. Honestly, I'm even considering retiring at this point because I don't think I can get that lucky 3 times in a row, but who knows. Either way, if you're interested in checking out this deck, like I said, I'm going to have the link in the description below. You guys are welcome to check it out if you want to try it out. I've already had a bunch of people contacting me asking for advice on the deck. Maybe they were already playing some sort of version of it, or they wanted to try it out because they saw it in action this weekend and they thought it was really cool. I'm always happy to talk shop on it. Like I was mentioning, we did a lot of play testing and trying to tweak and maximize its efficiency, and we got there. The deck itself is called I Love Lamp. Nice Anchorman reference there. And it's named as such because the lamp is a sleeper card. People are not using it right now, but realistically, it it functions so well, and especially when you set it up properly and have it ready to go when that Jafar hits the board. Some extra lore, some extra cards to fuel your game plan ended up being so worth it. And I'm going to continue experimenting with this, and hopefully, it's just going to get better from here. Um, for anyone who lasted this long during all my rambling, I want to thank you. I really appreciate you coming out to check this video out. I was really excited about this weekend, and I'm glad I got to share my experiences with so many people. And feel free to comment below if you have any questions or want to talk about anything in particular. And hope you like the video.